What's up, everybody? This is your boy Chainsaw. Listen, we have got a ton to cover here today. We're going to try and cram it all in. We're going to be talking about abortion-powered electric light bulbs, powering the nation's capital, at least according to the GQP. That's right. I did not misspeak. Republicans admitting and stating their fascist agenda out in the open. And I'm not even talking about Dark MAGA, but I'm sure at some point we will be talking about Dark MAGA. And lastly, I'm stealing more than just Hearts and David Pakman's furniture, right? As the infamous Eggman himself joins the ranks of our viewing audience. This and so much more. Cash, Coffee, and Chaos. So after months and months and months of complaining and blaming President Joe Biden for everything under the sun, everything from inflation, international supply chain issues, gas prices, and more recently, the shortage of baby formula in the country, blaming Joe Biden as if he were some sort of omnipotent dictator, as if their solution would be that Joe Biden uses executive authority and with a wave of his right hand, just make it all go away, right? And who's doing the vast majority of the complaining, you ask? Oh yeah, that's legislators. Republican legislators, GOP legislators in the House of Representatives, and GOP senators. What's their job again? Because after yesterday, it is very clear that even they have no idea what it is that they get paid for. Look, I'm not sure what the price per gallon in your neck of the woods is, but out here in the foothills and wilderness of the Ozarks, steeps of the Ozark Mountains here, quite literally the middle of nowhere, Missouri, working class folks making $11.15 per hour are paying $4.20 per gallon. Meanwhile, U.S. House passes bill to fight oil and gas price gouging. Boy, that sounds like good news so far, right? Washington Reuters, this is posted yesterday. The U.S. House passed a bill on Thursday that allows U.S. President to sign an energy emergency declaration, making it unlawful for companies to excessively increase gasoline and home fuel prices. Yes, right? The bill must pass the Senate, which is unlikely, and be signed by President Joe Biden to become law. The legislation, sponsored by Democratic representatives Katie Porter and Kim Schreier, passed the House 217 to 207 with no Republicans supporting it. In the Senate, evenly divided at 50 members in each party, 10 Republicans would be needed to support for this bill to pass. Yikes. Yikes. And what kind of defense is the GOP offering for this unanimous decision? Well, Republican Steve Scalise wrote to GOP members, according to CNN, that the bill is an attempt by the majority to extract and shift blame from the administration's self-inflicted energy and inflation crisis and blame energy producers despite no evidence of price gouging. CNN reports. So look, if you vote Republican and you can appreciate that your party doesn't give a damn what you're paying for fuel prices, you have all weekend to deal with that internal dialogue and conflict, right? This should be a wake-up call to all Americans that the Republican Party is willing to sacrifice the pocketbooks of working-class Americans, all in an attempt to gain political brownie points while claiming that the other side is attempting to gain political brownie points in their attempt to alleviate the strain on working-class Americans. Surely the bright side will be seen through this charade, but I fear that the list of those eligible is getting smaller and smaller by the day. Now, as if that weren't enough, when given an opportunity to do their jobs and legislate to improve conditions and ease the baby formula shortage, these same House Republicans, let me guess, also felt that any efforts were futile. Also felt that this move was political grandstanding by the left, right? Let's pull this up here. Nearly 200 Republicans vote against bill to ease baby formula shortage. House GOP leaders were among 192 Republicans who voted against providing $28 million. $28 million. Okay, Governor Mike Parson withheld $46 billion with a big old capital B from hospitals in 2021 during the COVID surge, during the Delta wave. He held on to that stuff from 2020 until fall of 2021. $46 billion would be. They're talking about $28 million. 192 Republicans voted against providing $28 million with a meh dollars in aid to the Food and Drug Administration to address the shortage of baby formula within days of criticizing President Biden for not doing enough on the issue. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy whipped Steve Scalise. Bright future for that guy in politics. And Conference Chair Elise Stefanik, also a fan favorite, voted late Wednesday against the measure to provide new FDA funding, which the House approved on a largely party line vote of 231 to 192. 192 House Republicans said no. 12 Republicans broke ranks and joined the Democrats on backing the money. On a separate bill, the House voted Wednesday overwhelmingly to ease the burden on low-income parents by allowing the Federal Women, Infants, and Children, the WIC program, a major national purchaser of formula, to source it. A lot of folks in Missouri know what a WIC is here. To source it from more foreign suppliers. The vote was 414 to 9, with all the opposition coming from Republicans, of course. The Senate approved the legislation Thursday by voice vote. It now heads to Biden, who will sign it into law. In recent days, Republicans have assailed Biden and the administration about the nationwide shortage that has forced parents to scramble to find formula to feed their infants. Scramble to find formula to feed their infants. On Wednesday, Biden invoked the Defense Production Act to address the issue, tapping a Korean War-era law to ramp up domestic manufacturing rapidly. So great idea. That's that executive order that I guess Republicans have been clamoring for Biden to use, but they're not willing to get off their asses and do anything about it. During Wednesday's floor debate, in recent days, House Republicans have described the Democratic bill providing money to the FDA as unnecessary, arguing that it would do little to solve the problem, to solve the root of the problem. Instead of working with Republicans to find bipartisan solutions to address the issue, Speaker Nancy Pelosi dropped the legislation yesterday in hopes of covering up the administration's ineptitude by throwing additional money at the FDA with no plan to actually fix the problem, all while failing to hold the FDA accountable. Weren't those funds to provide, inspectors? It was only $28 million. And wasn't that mostly going to be going to inspectors to import this food? Okay. Scalise said in a notice urging Republicans lawmakers to vote against the measure. Representative Kay Granger, Republican from Texas, criticized the bill as insufficiently bipartisan and called for existing federal funds to be spent on the issue. We had the opportunity to work across the aisle on a bipartisan solution to the crisis. Unfortunately, the text we're considering today has not been agreed to by both sides, she said during Wednesday's House debate. At a news conference last week, Stefanik, the third-ranking House Republican, cast the issue in personal terms. As a new mother, I understand personally the severity of this challenge, said Stefanik, whose son was born in August. She said she and other GOP lawmakers were pushing for action from the FDA and Biden administration, who should have had a plan for the shortage months ago. Instead, bare shelves Biden has continued to pass the buck. The shortage has been blamed on ongoing supply chain disruptions linked to the coronavirus pandemic, and manufacturer Abbott issuing a recall for products made at a Michigan plant and sold under the Similac, Alimentum, and Elecare labels. 4 children, 1 in Minnesota, 1 in Texas, and 2 in Ohio, fell ill with bacterial infections after being fed products, and 2 died. Which party is pushing, has a history of pushing against regulations for big corp? Right. Tyson? No, this is the first week in America. Okay. Stefanik, Representative Kathleen McMorris Rogers, Washington, Republican, of course, and other House Republican women introduced a competing measure Wednesday called the Babies Need More Formula Act, Babies Need More Formula Now Act, aimed at making it easier for American parents to obtain formula from abroad. Joe Biden's failed leadership is responsible for America's baby formula crisis, Stefanik said in a tweet Wednesday. Representative Stephanie Bice, Republican from Oklahoma, said she voted against the FDA bill because there was no reason to give the agency additional money. Maybe it was all those cuts to the FDA that happened over the course of the last, 4 years, 6 years now? You can't throw money at this problem, she said. This is a failure of leadership within the FDA, as well as the administration's failure to act. And so throwing, millions of dollars at the problem isn't going to actually fix it. The lawmaker argued that none of the additional funding would address the biggest problem, getting formula to families. This is about families and how they're struggling to meet the needs of infants, and we need to be focused on that specifically. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Thursday that 192 Republicans who oppose the bill are the latest example of the party's unwillingness to address the issues that matter to most Americans. We see baby formula as something that's at the kitchen table, she said in her weekly news conference, so we think the standpoint of the kitchen table, that there is no comparison between Democrats and Republicans. Wow. We'll leave it right there. 192 Republicans. And I did catch this a little bit more. So Stephanie Bice, Tom Cole, and Kevin Hearn, Frank Lucas, and Mark Wayne Mullen were among the 192 House Republicans. They're all from Oklahoma. Tom Cole is quoted as saying, while mothers and families, this is from KFOR, there in Oklahoma. While mothers and families struggle to find formula on the shelves to feed their children, Democrats decided to push through a bill that does not address the actual cause of the shortage. Unfortunately, the bill only creates the appearance of responding, but doesn't actually do anything to solve the supply crisis, said Cole. Furthermore, I'm frustrated by reports that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services was aware of the crisis beginning last year. That means there was ample opportunity to address the problem before it became a life and death situation. And it just drones on from there. Now, how many of those Republicans who voted against this bill would espouse that they are pro-life? I mean, are you folks seeing a sort of pattern here? This all happened yesterday. All of it just happened yesterday. Insufficiently bipartisan, they're calling it? Because I guess feeding starving babies, mind you, is bipartisan. Now, let's be real here, folks. The entire abortion argument from the right is that at any time, any fetus, whether viable or not, whether it can survive outside of the womb or not, in several cases, whether it can survive post-birth or not, their entire argument is that these are babies. That these are synonymous with full-blown children. And it's the government's job to ensure that they are protected with all the same rights as a 9-year-old child who can use long division, right? I mean, that's their entire argument about fetuses. But where is the Republican Party on actual babies? On actual born hungry and at this point, some cases malnourished, been alive for quite a while, babies. The official Republican Party's position seems to be that live babies are a partisan issue. And apparently feeding live babies is also a partisan issue. The writing is on the wall, folks. They are not pro-life, but they are very pro-birth, and it is our job to believe them when they say these things. And if you think I'm kidding even a little bit, take a look at this, my God. Michigan GOP candidate, I'd vote to ban birth control. It should not be legal. Okay. Jackie Eubanks says no society can succeed outside of the Christian moral order. This was published by onlysky.media is where I found this. This has been covered a couple of different places in independent media yesterday. I'm not sure how far it made it. But if this is your first time hearing it, let's take a look here. Jackie Eubanks, a Michigan Republican running for State House, said in a recent interview that given the option, she would vote to ban all birth control because it violates her Catholic faith. The Trump-endorsed conspiracy theorist made the comments during an interview conducted last week with Michael Voris of the aptly named site Church Militant, and I believe HuffPost has since confirmed this story. After insisting society could not function outside of the Christian moral order, Eubanks said she opposed abortion and marriage equality. That isn't necessarily a shock coming from a right-wing candidate, but then again, yeah, let's just hear it straight from the tweet here. We've got the video, or they've got the video, and now we've got it. Now you've got it. Let's take a listen.
You're a faithful Catholic, meaning you believe everything the church teaches?
Yes.
Everything?
Yes.
Everything?
Yes.
So you are, you see that the use of contraception is against natural moral law,
yes.
Is destructive, a doorway to abortion, blah, blah, and all that and everything else.
Yes.
You see the whole, everything going on with Roe, for example, right now, and all the left, becoming completely uncorked, losing their minds. The question, they're saying they're coming after your gay marriage next. They're coming after your birth control after that and everything else. Well, you know what? Yeah,
yep.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. So we need to make a plain statement of fact, which is the reason why the West is great is because Western civilization's underpinning is Christianity. You cannot have a successful society outside of the Christian moral order. And things like abortion and things like gay marriage are outside of the Christian moral order, and they
Let's just pull that back just a little bit there. Did I mention I'm a Japanese American?
underpinning is Christianity. You cannot have a successful society outside of the Christian moral order.
Is that so? Is that so? Whoa. Wow. Oh, I might have to cut that. I'm gonna start crying. Oh wow. The audacity it pales in comparison to the stupidity coming out of this person's mouth.
And things like abortion and things like gay marriage are outside of the Christian moral order, and they lead to chaos and destruction and a culture of death, which is why we're seeing that today. We have abandoned the Christian moral order as a nation, and we are reaping that destruction.
How do you answer the local press person who might be your age and just sees you as some loony that she wants to take away your birth control?
Well,
in the state of Michigan.
Sure. So I guess we have to ask ourselves, would that ever come to a vote in the Michigan State Legislature? And if it should, I would have to side with it should not be legal. And I think that people believe that birth control better, like you said, because, oh, then you won't get pregnant and you won't need to have an abortion, but I think that it gives people the false sense of security that they can have consequence-free sex, and that's not true and it's not correct. Sex ought to be between one man and one woman in the confines of marriage.
And open to life.
And open to life, absolutely.
Wow. Wow. Yo, Emmett County Democrats, I'm just a phone call away, okay? Let me know how many of them t-shirts you guys are gonna need. Wow. So this is just a little reminder. The folks who said, you know, Republican Party wouldn't go so far as to overturn gay marriage, or, you know, perhaps if they went so far as to overturn gay marriage, you know, certainly they wouldn't consider overturning interracial marriage, right? That's just too far-fetched. It's wacky. It's crazy. Come on, Chainsaw, get real. Come on, Chainsaw. Well, you know, if people like Jackie Eubanks start winning local state elections and becoming local state office holders, a lot of you will have a real tough time. You're going to have to get real, because you might not be coming on anything if people like her get their way, okay? I'm just saying. Look, I know that's kind of a joke, but this is very, very, very serious. People like this are dangerous. She wants to ban birth control. And she's willing to say that. And that she mentioned that she's a Catholic. She's not even technically a part of the Jerry Falwell crowd, right? Who have proven over the last 40 years to be even more radical and have a significantly larger and more devout following than any other theocratic group in the United States. I mean, the Supreme Court leak and the existence of a majority of the Supreme Court justices themselves are now proof of how powerful these groups have become within our government since the Reagan era. Something that definitely should not be mocked and should be taken very, very seriously. These people are incredibly, incredibly dangerous to democracy. Listen, we're going to take a short break, jump right back into it. So on Wednesday, during a congressional hearing in the U.S. House on abortion rights, Catherine Glenn Foster, after swearing under oath, said this.
Because it is, frankly, inconvenient. Human persons, from their earliest days, poisoned in the womb and dismembered, torn limb from limb. Bodies thrown in medical waste bins and, in places like Washington, D.C., burned to power the lights of the city's homes and streets. Let that image sink in with you for a moment. The next time you turn on the light, think of the incinerators. Think of what we're doing to ourselves so callously and so numbly. Always and everywhere, the convictions of pro-abortion activists are damaging, are deadly, and are devastating to the fabric of American democracy. To speak for the violence as it is.
Okay. Under oath. Now, according to Salon.com, which is who had published this video that I'd first seen. Let me see if I can pull this up. Foster is not some random nut that Republicans pulled off a soapbox at a subway station minutes before the hearing started. She is a Georgetown Law School graduate who is paid $190,000 a year to be the president of Americans United for Life, one of the largest anti-abortion nonprofits in the country. So just as a continuation of what we were talking about before the break, believe it when these people tell you what they tell you. My God. If that isn't just weird enough. So former President Donald Trump has been making getting some attention on independent media circles for his offers of election advice, we'll call it, to Dr. Mehmet Oz, that he should just declare himself the winner Of course, because there's no reason to believe that Republican voters at this point would simply not just go with it, right? This was actually captured. Let me see if I can pull this up here. This was actually captured from his account on Truth Essential, as it were. President Oz race is ridiculous. How long does it take to count votes? France, same day, all paper, had verified numbers in evening. U.S. is a laughing stock on elections. Stop finding votes in Pennsylvania? Rigged, question mark. Question mark indeed, sir. Now, we may have spoke a little bit early, although maybe, when we announced that CNN had announced that Dr. Oz would not be the winner and that McCormick was looking better. What is this? Associated Press reports Oz led McCormick at 1,723 votes on Wednesday out of the more than 1.3 million votes counted. There were tens of thousands of votes left to be counted, including 22,000 mail ballots and an unknown number of votes cast on Election Day. Statewide, McCormick was doing better than Oz among mail ballots, while Oz was doing better among votes cast on Election Day, which is where CNN had come to their numbers. But yeah, still up in the air. But of course, that doesn't matter to Donald Trump. And if Mehmet Oz just declares himself the winner, it's likely not to matter to our Republican voters. So, good thing at this point, Dr. Oz has not just decided to just declare himself the winner at this point. Now, here's Dr. Oz appearing on Greg Kelly's show on Newsmax, disagreeing with Pennsylvania Democrats primary winner John Fetterman regarding the devil's lettuce. Let's take a look.
Fetterman has won statewide in Pennsylvania. He's got that going for him. He is a big. He doesn't dress like a normal politician. He's always wearing hoodies and he wears shorts. He wants to legalize marijuana, I believe, which essentially, quite frankly, seems to be legal. What is your stance on that, by the way, marijuana?
You know, there are not enough Pennsylvanians to work in Pennsylvania. So giving them pot so they stay home is not, I don't think, an ideal move. I also don't want to breed addiction to marijuana. It's not physical addiction, it's emotional addiction, but I don't want young people to think they have to smoke a joint to get out of their house in the morning. We need to get Pennsylvanians back at work. You got to give them their mojo, and I don't want marijuana to be a hindrance to that. I also don't want people operating heavy machinery and driving by me when they've been taking their fourth joint of the day. But there are other issues that are plaguing Pennsylvanians. We're a border state practically, right? Because they're flying illegal immigrants up here from the border in the middle of the night, these night flights, but they're also getting their narcotics up here really easily. And Fetterman.
Look, I don't even smoke pot, folks, but abolition is just, I mean, it doesn't get much more authoritarian than that. I mean, I guess it does. Pretty much everything that we'd covered before the break, but just one more chip in the stack, right? Just more fuel to the fire. Now, before we end, this I found kind of just awesome. And quite frankly, I found it hilarious. So way back in January, at the end of January, Alex Jones did his best to run a pretty heavy smear job against a former fellow of mine, Pacifica radio show host David Pakman, former fellow that used to also be affiliated with Pacifica. Jones' attacks ended up making for some great samples on David's soundboard, and of course he mentioned the incident on his show, the David Pakman show. A longtime listener of the show and a former Pacifica host myself, I commented on one of his social media platforms and one of his posts that, you know, I'd been listening to the show since 2010 and that, you know, I believe and suggested that his fans should identify as pack maniacs. I honestly thought this back in those 2010, 2011. I thought, that's, you know, I'm just kind of a dork like that. Well, this grabbed the attention of the Eggman, a frequent caller, commenter, and longtime listener of the David Pakman show as well. He actually responded, informing me that he currently has a dog named Chainsaw, which is awesome. but he failed to mention what kind of dog it is. So, I don't know if it's a Shih Tzu, a German Shepherd, if it's a Yorkie, points to the Eggman if it's a Yorkie. So this sparked a quick back and forth between myself and the Eggman, and I asked, if he would mind if I mentioned the conversation on the show, well, at least that some almost 4 months ago, right? So I reached out to the Eggman, sent him a link to the show, to the YouTube channel, just the other day. And turns out now he's a fan of this show as well. Apparently I reeled in the Eggman with my comments about the ultra MAGA amosexuals and their hyper masculine arquebus lifestyle. Some may recall that last year about this time I also made a appearance on financial analyst and former gubernatorial candidate Meet Kevin's show. Some may have also noticed that we had a similar lighting setup. So I thought I'd take the time to just come clean with you. Just weeks before my appearance on Meet Kevin's show, he was changing out things around his studio, making room for the new campaign office, and, I was big into couponing back then, so I might have done a little bit of adventure dumpster diving and retrieved some of his purple lights, And of course, when David Pakman was still in Boston, I might have done the same thing and, picked up this sweet TV that sits behind me. That you may have noticed here. You remember from his old studio setup before he shoplifted Sam Cedars, big panels. So here's my proposition. Some of you may know that we now have a new Patreon, which you can support by going to patreon.com/chainsawccc and show your support for a very small but hearty independent media outlet, foothills of the Ozark Mountains. And, now that I have Kevin's lights and David Pakman's TV, once our Patreon makes it to $200, I will personally fly out to Florida and steal Beau of the Fifth Column's hat. Of course, we're going to need more support for my return trip, because that guy seems huge. And medical care is not cheap, if you haven't noticed. But, maybe after that, I can head back to New York for the rest of Sam Cedars' panels. I don't know. But, look, in all seriousness, folks, thank you so much for everyone who is following me on Twitter, folks who have been watching the show, my new subscribers here on YouTube, and to the Eggman in particular, shalom, my dude. I hope you all have a great, safe rest of your weekend, and catch you on the flippity fling flong. Rock and roll.